Hi, good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Garibaldi School Transition Live event. Can I first of all apologise for the slight delay in getting to you in this new world of technology which we find ourselves in. We've had some slight technical difficulties, but hopefully we're back up and running. If I can just say at this point, if for any reason the link does break and it becomes unavailable, we will try and establish connection again pretty quickly. So again, welcome. I'm James Aldred. I'm head teacher here at the Garibaldi School, and tonight the point and purpose of this session is to supplement the videos and the information regarding transition and to answer any questions submitted. This isn't the usual way that we do it. We like the personal approach here at Garibaldi. Clearly we're operating in extreme and abnormal circumstances at the minute, and unfortunately the rules in which we have to adhere to in the government guidance means that we can't do the usual transition programme that we'd usually follow, and that does sadden me, because I do like to meet new parents and the students on the transition days and the transition evenings. So I didn't want to not do a transition programme at all. So hopefully yourselves and the year sixes, your sons, your daughters, grandchildren have had the opportunity to look through our new transition YouTube channel and have managed to have a look through some of the videos that we've put on there to help to answer some of those questions which students would normally get the answers to on those transition visits. We wouldn't have answered every single question, because that's why we have these evenings. It's an opportunity for parents and for students to ask any questions that they may have. We've tried to cover as much as we could, but undoubtedly there were questions. So tonight, my colleagues, Martin Dawson, who's the deputy head, and Phil Hunt, who's the assistant head, will be able to answer some of those questions that have been submitted through that web portal, as you've all had a look at. Hopefully you've also had the opportunity to input the data through the forms that are on there, so the medical information and the admin forms, and what that does is it allows us to get students registered in readiness for an effective start in September. This video, just for reference, again, newfound technology, it will be made available. There is a recording being made of this video tonight, and it will be available again on the transition portal on our YouTube channel if you wanted to go back to it and refer back to it, or if you know anybody that wasn't able to make this evening, that they may be able to, you might be able to direct them to the right place. So I do know how challenging it is for parents and students when you're making that transition between primary school and secondary school. It's the only time really that transition happened for a lot of students, because they would start age 3 at primary school, they go through all the year groups quite naturally, whereas this is the first time they've moved from one school to another school. So I know that there's all sorts of feelings, all sorts of emotions attached to that, and again, these days are designed to support students and parents with the changes that are faced through that transition period. So you'll see that what we've done is we've put an additional induction day in on August the 28th in order for year 7 students to come in and almost experience what that induction day looks like. It isn't a compulsory day. Students don't start school until the week after, on the 1st of September, and therefore, you know, their attendance won't go against them if they're not in on the 28th of August. But through speaking to parents and through some of the feedback that we've had, it was believed to be a useful opportunity for those students to come in on that day and to experience what a day at Garibaldi would be like without any other students around. So hopefully the majority of students will be in on that day, and it's an opportunity to meet the mentors, have a tour around school, and to have that one-to-one personal contact with the mentors to answer any of those questions. But as much as that for students, it's also a challenging time for parents as well, and we know you will be feeling mixed emotions, and we know you will have anxieties with it as well, because it is very different from being at primary school. But here we're very much a partnership, and we do rely on the relationships that we have with the parents. So we do look forward to seeing you at the school gates, and we look forward to speaking to you at different points throughout the year. So what we're talking about today, and questions that my colleagues will answer, what we're doing is we are setting up school to start as usual in September. All right, and the government announcements last week is that all students will return to school in September, and all staff will return to school in September. But what I will do is I will put a caveat to that we are still responding to local and national situations and contexts as they arrive. So we'll give you information tonight which is as fresh as it could possibly be. But what I intend to do is, before returning to school towards the end of August, and certainly before the 28th, I'll write to all the parents again just to inform you of what the most freshest context is and the environment that we're operating in. Okay. So the 28th of August, not a formal day, as I've already said, but it is a day where the students will navigate the way around, hopefully familiarise themselves with the settings and see what will be quite different to all students when they return back. And it's important that all students have a bit of a reintroduction and a re-engagement session with the school, because the layout of the school and the way that we operate is very different from how it was what will be 26 weeks ago when students last set foot in the building. So Year 7s will be first on the 28th of August. On the 1st of September, which is the Tuesday, Year 7s will be in again, and they'll be with the morning, for the morning session with their mentors. But Year 11 will also be in, and it will just be those two year groups, and we'll grow the school over the course of that week once we've inducted everybody back into their return to Garibaldi. So to some extent, Year 7s are learning some of the new information at the same time as the rest of the school are learning how to operate in very different circumstances. It is important that attendance is really strong at all times of the year, and we've got a minimum attendance target of 96% for all students, but actually to be of greatest benefit, students need to be in school all the time and have 100% attendance to school. And we've got a whole team of people that work on attendance and supporting parents and families when the going might get a little bit tough, or the dark winter days set in. It is really important that students are in school, and as I've said to parents throughout this whole situation, nothing can replicate the educational experience that students will have at school anywhere else. So it's really important for students to attend. Over the last 16 weeks since lockdown, since the 23rd of March, parents have had a choice as to whether or not to send students back into school or not, and I totally understand that circumstance, and I totally understand reasons for parents maybe not sending their children back into school. But unfortunately, from September, again, I've got to follow government policy and guidelines on this, and I've got to insist almost that students attend school 100% of the time. And although I don't like to talk about fines and that sort of thing, my hands will be tied that I will have to issue penalty notices for parents that refuse to send students back into school. I really don't want to go down that line, and working together with families and understanding the students, I want to encourage students and re-educate, re-engage those students back into coming to school. So please, early doors, if there are any struggles, any issues with getting students re-engaged, then please start making contact with the school so we can support you on getting students, your children, back into school in the most effective way possible. In my presentation, on my video on the YouTube channel and on Mr. Hunt's, you'll see the slide about the Garibaldi formula, and that is a real driving force here. And this is about having high standards and high expectations, and it outlines the students' part and the teachers' parts and our roles and responsibility in making sure that students leave here well educated, well-rounded individuals ready for the world of work or employment or education thereafter. My guarantee is that I will ensure that students get a high quality of education at all times, but my demands on the students is they expect high standards of themselves at all times, and that they conform to all the rules and regulations that we have at school, which are there not to be punitive necessarily in the first instance, but they're there to support students on making the most of their journey through school. What we place great focus and attention on is developing students as a whole. So we're not an exams factory. We want students to achieve the best that they can at the end of it, but we will support that through our relationship working with parents, but also to ensure that students are well-rounded and they develop the skills and personal characteristics required to be successful. All right, and what I can guarantee you is that people in school will really care about your children and really nurture them through their time in education to make sure that their experience is as good as it can be. So in terms of those, that formula, we've got the attitude to learning section, and this is all about the development of skills. All right, so resilience, determination, willingness to learn, reflectiveness and self-motivation, all the things that combine together support the quality of their own education and develop them into having the skills necessary to survive outside of school and progress in work or education thereafter. The consequences section is, and again I refer to Mr. Hunt's video, but the consequences section, we will issue consequences in class where students fall short of expectations, and we don't do that lightly. We've got a minimum amount of, or a minimal amount of detentions that we issue, and exclusions only used as last resort. We really don't have many detentions or exclusions, and that's something that we talk to students about, or you know, on a regular basis. But the challenge to the students, and their part of the bargain, is that they will conform in class and they will pay really close attention to what the teacher's saying, and they'll work really hard in class. By the time they get a consequence at a C3 level, that means they've been spoken to on 3 separate occasions. Okay, and I would suggest that by a C1, that's their advice and guidance really on the fact that the teacher's not happy with what they're doing so far, and that therefore they need to review the standards that they're exhibiting. Okay, so high standards all the time. You'll notice that we've got conduct cards, and our policy on mobile phones is that mobile phones, they're allowed to bring them into school. We're happy for them to bring them into school because we know that that's a bit of a comfort blanket for those, and for the students and for you as parents. But they're not allowed to be seen or heard during the day. And you know, again, we've got to insist that that is the case with all students. I've talked about attendance. My guarantee is that I will ensure that the teaching is of the highest standards, and I make a personal assurance to you that I will ensure that your students, your children, sorry, our students, get the best educational experience, and that the teachers develop to ensure that they deliver amazing lessons. I'll also guarantee that they get that compassionate care and support and guidance from the mentors and from the student services and student support team and all the teachers they come into contact with. We will truly care about your children and make sure that they're nurtured through their time here. When they start Garibaldi, they will have a full curriculum, and my intention is that they will return to a full timetable, and that timetable consists of lessons that they might not have experienced so far in primary school, but they will pick up and run with, and we'll expose them to a wide range of subjects and delve really deep into those subjects, so we really develop their engagement and their passion for a range of different subjects. And what tends to happen is that they will specialise by year 9 in a pathway that they become interested in readiness to study in year 10. But what you'll find through starting and joining us in year 7 is that they'll find new hobbies and new interests that they'll pick up through and maybe experience outside of school to support their learning in school. They might come home and talk about subjects that they've got a real passion and an interest in, that we will help to develop and support and nurture through our engagement and enrichment programme that we've got in school. We also have a curriculum of religion, equality and diversity, character development and personal development, and all of those subjects will, or character development and personal development, will be delivered through the mentor provision. RE equality and diversity is a subject that they'll have in their own right and will be a 50-minute lesson each day. Our timetable is that the students will have 6 lessons of 50 minutes each day, and again that is subject to change based on some of the changes we might have to make in readiness for September, but that will be the provision, 6 lessons of 50 minutes. Okay, so at this point in time, what I'm going to do is hand over to Mr. Dawson, Deputy Head Teacher, who's going to pick up some of the questions that were posed on the portal, and hopefully provide a little bit more clarity to some of them. For me, there will be a number of opportunities throughout the year that I'm hoping will be able to meet each other in person, and we can invite you in to meet the mentors, to meet myself and the leadership team, and hopefully have that opportunity to do that, because we've not had the opportunity to do it thus far. So what I'm going to do is pass on to Mr. Dawson, and then I'll just come back at the end just to close the question and answer session. Thanks for now.
Thanks, Mr. Aldred. Good evening, everybody. The questions that I'll be kind of taking people through are the ones that were really parent focused. So the first of those was, how do I arrange uniform? Obviously, under normal circumstances, we'd have done things slightly differently. All the details about the uniform and arrangements are on the school website, and Academy School Uniforms are our supplier. If you wanted to kind of check out their website and kind of look into that. On the 20th of July, I hope you're already aware of this, but we've got a school uniform measuring service that's being provided. You should have had an allocated time slot in terms of when you can come in for that. What we would remind you of, though, please, is it's just the measuring service for the Year 6 coming into Year 7 students. So please don't bring any other older children along for that provision. We can't, unfortunately, and we did say that we might be able to provide an opportunity to try on uniform, but unfortunately, given circumstances, that's not going to be possible. However, the staff that are going to be there from the uniform provider are going to be kind of fully decked out in kind of PPE. What will actually happen is that it will be parents themselves that will do the measuring of the students. Nothing can be purchased on the day. But what you'll need to do is take measurements away from that day and order those online, and then delivery times and everything else will be communicated to you when you place that order. And again, just to clarify, no elements of the uniform this year are being provided for free. So the blazer, the tie will need to be kind of purchased in terms of the uniform provision. We also had a question about how do parents contact the school and the best means to do that. There are a variety of ways that you can kind of contact the school. The main one, and probably the quickest in terms of getting a response, will be to call into school. Reception staff can, if it's outside of lesson time, direct calls to staff in school. If it's during lesson time, what they'll be able to do is take a message and arrange for members of staff to actually call back. You can email into school. We've got a school office email which will be picked up, and those emails, if they're for a particular member of staff, can be directed in that way. Or alternatively, you can actually get access to all staff emails on the school website under information and staffing. What we've got there is the list of all members of staff and their email addresses. So if there was a particular member of staff for a subject area, for example, that information is provided and is available. We also had a question about how teaching groups are going to be determined, because obviously it may well be that your sons and daughters are coming up to Garibaldi with students from their primary school. They'll be wondering whether they're going to be in the same teaching group with them or not. We will be using the same mechanism for determining teaching groups that we would usually, which is to use a combination of their Key Stage 2 SAT scores, which will be communicated to us before we get to the summer holidays, and also any information that's been passed on in terms of the transition process between the primary school and ourselves. However, what I would say about kind of teaching group provision is that it's flexible, and every year there are a number of kind of group changes that take place in Year 7. There's not a fixed time or point throughout the year where those changes could take place. They're as and when is needed. And we keep a close eye on how students are settling into those groups and whether they're the appropriate group. As and when any changes are made, the vast majority of any group changes will be down to kind of academic need. Occasionally, and very, very occasionally, there are circumstances where students are moved in terms of groups that's to do with pastoral reasons. But again, the number of group moves that take place is quite limited, and all of those are based on a range of evidence and a range of information that, in the case of your sons and daughters, will be reviewed by Mr. Dench-Smith, who will be their achievement lead for next year. We had a question around how you would report if your son or daughter was unwell and what you should do in those circumstances. So again, primarily call into school. We do have a student absence line, which a member of staff will man. If you make the call before that member of staff is available, there is a voicemail function where a message can be left. What I would suggest is that when you make that call, if you can make sure you give their name, their mentor group, the reason for absence, and the expected date of return as well. You can email the student's mentor, but please do that in addition to making a phone call into school as well, because it may well be the case that the mentor doesn't pick up the email straight away, and we'd like to know in terms of attendance as soon as possible. And if your son or daughter is off school for a number of days, if you can keep us updated, just so that we know whether to expect them or not that day, and just in terms of their expected date of return. We had a number of questions around bikes and scooters and whether those can be brought into school. The answer is yes, they can. There is a lockable bike shed facility that's available. However, there are a number of, I suppose, caveats to coming in to school on bikes and scooters. One of those is around arrival times and departure times, because as you can imagine, as with most schools, it can get extremely busy out at the front of school, the traffic, the buses, etc. So what we would encourage is that students get into school ahead of the actual start of school, the school day, so that they're in good time, and they can get a chance to take their bike or scooter to the bike shed. And at the end of the day, what we do in the interests of student safety is we hold students back until 3:10, and so the bike shed is not unlocked until that time, and that ensures that the majority of the traffic and other students and pedestrians are away from the front of the school site, so that they can kind of leave the site safely. We ask that helmets are mandatory in terms of students that come into school on bikes and scooters. And what we will do is, if students do turn up to school or leave the school site without helmets, is that we'll pass on those concerns to parents and keep you informed. But if that is a regular occurrence, what we'll have to do is remove that privilege of keeping the bike or the scooter in the bike shed. We ask that students bring a lock to secure their bike or their scooter in the bike shed. And for obvious reasons, we can't take any responsibility for bikes and scooters that are brought onto site. I know from experience that some of those can often be quite expensive items, but again, that bike shed facility is provided there with those caveats. We also had some questions around food and drink and how we kind of add money to student accounts. So that facility can be done via some machines that are in school. There are 2 machines available, both in kind of central locations where students can add money to their account using their thumbprint. It's based on kind of biometric information, or that can be done online. If your son or daughter is registered for free school meals, there's a £2.30 allowance each day, and it's for lunchtime use only. So if they try to use it at break time to get a sausage roll or something more healthy, then actually they won't be able to. You can put additional and extra money on if they want to use it at break time, but that £2.30 for the lunchtime provision, it won't roll over to the next day. It has to be spent that particular day. So details for how to use the online account will come out. We commence in the 24th of August, so that will set out some more details on that. Again, that's another reason to make sure that those kind of online forms are completed in good time, because we'll direct those to you via email, and that's one of the bits of information on the online form that we'd like to gather. In terms of the account money, what we would suggest is that online payment is preferred, because obviously given current circumstances, those machines take a biometric reading of thumbs, people having to touch them. However, we can assure you that those machines will be cleaned regularly, and as much as possible between users when they are being used. We had a question around Parents' Evening, and when Parents' Evening would be for Year 7s. And actually what we've got are 2 separate evening provisions for Year 7s next year. So we have Meet the Mentor Evening, which is on Thursday, the 12th of October, which is towards the end of the first half term. And as the name indicates, it's a chance to meet the mentor. So it is a kind of holistic view of how your son or daughter has settled into school, how they're getting on. It won't be subject specific, but it will address kind of their academic start to school. And mentors will have some information to hand about that start to lessons and how they're getting on. In addition to that evening, we've also got the actual Year 7 Parents' Evening that is on Thursday, the 22nd of April, and that will be a chance to speak to specific subject staff and to address any matters that might have come through on our monitoring that's been sent home in terms of student progress and attitude to learning. And so the final question that I wanted to address before I hand over was about school equipment and what kinds of school equipment children should be bringing in Year 7. We insist that all students in Year 7 would need an appropriate school bag. I don't think any of them could get away with just shoving what they need into their pockets or into their blazer pockets, even though some of them are pretty big. So they should have a pencil case that's reasonably well stocked with pens, plural, because they do run out, pencils, a ruler and a rubber. If they can be provided with at some point a scientific calculator, I think that would be a good addition. However, it might be best to hold off on that until the maths and science department can give some direction to which one might be the most appropriate. Subject specific equipment will be provided to students in lessons. So for example, art materials, they don't have to come with their own watercolours or anything like that. But given the circumstances, any provision for that shared equipment will be cleaning equipment in between the use of different groups of students. So basic equipment pretty much, and I think if they can make sure that from Year 7 all the way through to, if they stay with us into Year 13, they can have pens, pencils, a rubber and a ruler, most staff would be pretty happy with the equipment that they've bought in. So I'll hand over now to Mr. Hunt, who's going to address some of the questions that had more of a kind of a student focus, I suppose. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Hi, good evening everybody. As Mr. Dawson just said, my name is Mr. Hunt and I'm an assistant head of school here at Garibaldi. My job is relating to standards and the expectations we have of students, and that's standards in terms of behaviour, and I'm also responsible for the safeguarding of the students whilst they're with us as well. The questions that I'm going to answer that were posed to us through the transition portal are very much the questions that have been generated by the students, the Year 6 students, who are probably very apprehensive at the moment about what's going to happen and what it's going to be like. So some of the questions I'm going to answer have also been answered through the mentor videos, which hopefully you've watched on the YouTube channel, and also through the videos by myself, and Mr. Aldred. So the first question, and this is always the first question of any Year 6 student, is will I get lost? And I have to give you a very honest answer that yes, you will. I'm always amazed though how quickly students get used to the site, how quickly they adapt to a much bigger learning environment to that of their primary school. And I'm also amazed how helpful the existing Garibaldi students are. You will be made to feel very welcome. And if you did find yourself at a point where you were lost, and the place suddenly felt very empty because everyone else has made their way to lessons, there will always be a member of staff or another student that you will see across the yard or at the other end of a corridor, and they'll be more than happy to help you out. So don't worry about getting lost. Accept that it is part of that transition to a much bigger school, but we will help you out and we will be around at all times. What I would advise is during breaks and lunches, get yourself your snack. Mr. Dawson suggested the sausage rolls, they're very good. But I would suggest that during break and lunch is you do make every effort to think, where am I next? Where's my next lesson? All right, where do I need to be? And just take the last 10 minutes or 5 minutes just to make sure you are heading in the right direction. And again, ask members of staff, even if you're not ready to go there at that moment in time. So don't worry, we will help you out. And we will give some allowance for the fact that you're new and you don't know the school site. And if you were to turn up a couple of minutes late to your lessons over the first couple of weeks, don't panic. Nobody's going to be cross with you. We accept that there's a learning curve to go through. Another question was about how many students are going to be in year 7, and I'm really pleased to report that we've got 178. That will make you one of the biggest year groups in the school. The numbers are increasing at Garibaldi. There's a lot of demand for places, so you're very lucky that you've secured a place here. And so there's 178. That's a lot of students, very different to what you're used to. Will I see my friends from primary school? Yes, because some of them will be in your mentor group, so that's where you'll be registered in the morning and undergo some of those other tasks that Mr. Aldred made reference to about personal and character development. So some of them you'll see every morning in your mentor time. Some of them you'll see within your teaching groups, and Mr. Dawson's made reference to the fact that you'll be put into your teaching groups, and just by chance, that's not based on friendship groups, that's based on how you've got on in your primary education, but you will see students in lessons and in mentor time. And obviously during those non-contact times, break and lunches, you can see your friends around the school site in areas such as the hall or the hub. Will I see students from other year groups? I know that you're worried about the size of year 11s. All right, everybody is worried about the size of year 11s and they seem to be getting taller all the time. So yes, you're going to see them around the school site, but they will be friendly, they will help you out. You might know some of them because they might be related to you or friends and so on. So yes, you will see them around. As we've said to you, on the 28th of August, we are opening up the school as an opportunity for you to come in and have a look around and all those things. And there won't be any other year groups in then. So that first day on the 28th, you really don't need to worry about that because none of the other students will be here. And when you start with us officially, if you like, on the 1st of September, then those older students will come in later in the morning, later in the afternoon. So again, it's a gradual process, but of course you will see them around the school site. Are there any maps of the school? Well, there's a document on our transition portal, which is called Stepping Up from Primary to Secondary, and that's aimed at the students. So it's aimed at you. And on the back page of that document is a map. So you can have a good look at that map and try and familiarise yourself with it. And having been here probably for various visits over the years, you may well start to orientate yourself just by looking at that map. Within the challenge booklet that Mr. Dench-Smith put together and a set for you, there are some questions that relate to that map. So have a look at that, and it does form part of those challenge activities. Where do I eat my lunch? Again, big question. It's the most important thing when I get to work in the morning. Where am I going to have my lunch and where am I going to have it? More importantly, what am I going to have? There's the hub or the hall. So there's two key areas, internal areas, if you like, that you can have your lunch. And it doesn't matter whether you're buying a school meal, whether you're a free school meal, whether you're bringing a packed lunch. You are welcome to use those two areas as an opportunity to sit and enjoy your lunch and socialise with your friends. We have invested recently, and hopefully the weather will still be good when we come back in September, better than it is today. But there are outdoor seating areas. There's more of those. We're increasing those. So there is some nice, pleasant areas for you to sit outside and enjoy your lunch. What I will ask, and you will be reminded of this when you start in August or September, is that just all litter and everything else goes in the bin when you finish with it. Can I arrive in my PE kit or arrive or leave in my PE kit? And will I need my PE kit on the first day? Well, I'll start at the end of that question. You don't need your PE kit on the first day. It might be by coincidence that it is one of your first lessons, but you won't be expected to actually get changed and participate in a sporting activity. You'll be informed by the PE department of what PE is like at Garibaldi. And again, you can get an insight into that already through Mr. Gray's transition video on the transition portal. In terms of arriving in PE kit, and you might think, well, I've got PE first lesson, then we prefer you to arrive, and we want you to arrive in your full uniform. The expectations are high with regard to uniform, and you must arrive in your full school uniform. And the same at the end of the day, you might think, well, my last lesson, I've just done PE, I'm going home now. You do need to change back into your uniform. Remember, you represent the Garibaldi School once you leave the site as you make your way to and from your home address, to and from the school. So it's really important you maintain those high standards. What do I do with a conduct card? Well, Mr. Aldridge's already mentioned that we've got conduct cards. Well, they need to sit in your top pocket of your blazer and be with you at all times. They've been designed so they fit in your blazer pocket. And should a member of staff see something that you're doing really, really well during non-lesson times, then they'll ask to see that conduct card and they'll make a comment in there about what it is that you're doing really well. And what's nice about that is when you go and see your mentor the following morning, you can show them your conduct card and say, Mr. Hunt's made this comment about me because I was helping out. I was showing somebody else to another classroom. I picked up some litter from the table where me and my friends were sat. So again, there's a great opportunity there for you to get some really positive comments from your mentor and other members of staff around the school site. There's a flip side to a conduct card, as you can imagine. If I was to see you doing something that I wasn't happy about, then I could ask to see your conduct card and I might have to make a negative comment. Hopefully that won't be the case. All right, but if a member of staff asks to see your conduct card, you must present it to them and allow them to make those comments. And again, your mentor will have a conversation with you about that, but they'll give you some advice. It'll be a positive conversation about how you could do things differently. Mr. Aldridge already mentioned this as well, but I'll just touch on it about mobile phones. So just to reiterate, and again, you know, some of you will have older brothers and sisters and family members that have been through the school, but you cannot bring your mobile phone, or you can bring your mobile phone into school, but you cannot use it whilst you're on the school site. Okay, so it must be out of sight, switched off or on silent, in a pocket or in a bag, out of the way. Again, if we do see that mobile phone, you'll be politely asked to put it away. And again, a member of staff will put a comment on your conduct card. Another question is, what are the non-negotiables? Well, those are the very basic expectations that we have from all students. So actually, it makes it very easy for you. They're there to support you, because if you know what those non-negotiables are, you know exactly what it is we expect, and therefore you shouldn't make too many mistakes. So there's some non-negotiables around uniform, for example. So if your shirt's untucked, it won't be a surprise to you that a member of staff will speak to you about that and say to you, well, it's one of our non-negotiables. Your shirt must be tucked in at all times. Now, the non-negotiables feature in the video that I've got onto YouTube. They also feature in your mentors' videos. Okay, and they also appear within various documents that are available on that transition portal. So you've got plenty of opportunity between now, 28th of August, or for some of you, the 1st of September, to have a look at those non-negotiables to make sure you fully understand what those basic expectations are. They're really important to us, but they need to be really important to you as well. Okay, you've signed up for the Garibaldi School and you need to meet those very basic expectations. Mr. Aldridge talked about consequences, so I'm not going to mention those, but we get lots of questions. And the key question is, what's the C3? Well, it's a 20-minute detention on the same day. Hopefully, that won't apply to many of you. All right, you get those warnings. You have that opportunity in your lessons to improve your behaviour. And it might just be talking to a friend. It might not be something that you think is particularly disruptive, but it's stopping your learning and the learning of somebody else. So again, you'll get familiar with consequences because it will be explained to you. The final question I'm going to answer is about the challenge booklet. Now, if you watch Mr. Dench Smith's video, your achievement lead, at the end of that video, he talks in some detail about that challenge booklet. And he set you a challenge. The challenge is very open-ended. You can do whatever you want, but it's a great opportunity for you to come back to or come into us on the 28th or the 1st. Depending which day you're in first, bring that challenge booklet with you, because your mentor will ask you about your challenge. What was it you did? Why did you do that particular challenge? How did it go? Would you do it differently next time? There's also lots of information in those challenge booklets, or lots of opportunity for you to tell us a little bit about you. Okay, so bring those challenge booklets back in. Your mentor will ask for them, and you might get the opportunity to discuss it with some friends within your mentor group. You might get an opportunity to discuss it with people you've not met before, but you'll certainly get an opportunity to discuss it with your mentor so they can learn a little bit more about you. So that's all the questions or the frequently asked questions that we got through our transition portal. So again, like Mr. Dawson, I look forward to seeing you all either in August or September. Thank you.
Okay, so finally back to me, just to round off the event. I hope that we've managed to answer the questions that had been submitted through that web portal. Undoubtedly, there will be more questions. Again, please, if I can refer you just back to the YouTube channels, just to have a look through and see if you can identify where that question might be answered from. However, on that induction day, we will be at the front of school talking to parents and answering and helping to support you over that first week with any questions that you might have. And for students, please use that booklet that Mr. Hunt was just talking about to note down any questions that they may have that they may want to present to their mentors, and we'll try and answer as many questions we can over those first couple of days. Just to clarify that on the 28th, it's not a formal school day, but there is an expectation that students will be in uniform. That's the first time of coming into school, so that is the day where the wearing of the uniform begins. Again, I've said at the beginning of the video that we will have to respond to some COVID specific responses just in preparation and getting things ready for September. And the government guidance only came out on that last week. So we are looking at a range of different models and different options as to what that looks like. There will be year groups working in bubbles. So Mr. Hunt talked about the movement between schools. Undoubtedly, the students will pass each other, but students will work within their own year groups that they're based in. So things at lunchtime, for example, on a normal school day, years 7 to 11 would queue up for dinner and they're going together because that's all part of building character. But in the current circumstances, we won't be able to do that. So year 7 will have their dinners separately for the time being. And again, all of this will just be made clear to students nearer to the time. And I will, as promised, write out to everybody just with some of those changes that we will have to make in response to the ongoing situation. So again, I hope we've answered your questions. This is an interesting approach. Again, I'd much rather have done a personal contact with you and been able to answer questions face to face. I'm pleased the technology's seen us through the event without too much glitching, I think they call it in the IT world. But can I thank you all for your attendance this evening, and just a reminder that this is available on YouTube if you did want to refer back to it, as with all of our other videos. And if I can wish you the best wishes for now, and I really do look forward to meeting you on those first couple of days back in September. Best wishes from me. Stay safe and well. Thank you.